Alrighty guys, where I left you off in part 1 was making your rounds until you got to the width of your sleeve. Alright, the upper arm of your sleeve really, yeah? So you should be right here right now. Not really sure where you are for your size, but we're going to talk about sizes real quickly. But before we do, I need you to check this out right here. Alrighty guys, we are going to start by taking some measurements. Alright, so you really need to focus on one large measurement only. But we're going to take 3 measurements today. So that way you know which one is your largest measurement and that's what you're working on. Alright, so the first measurement you need to take is the chest measurement. It's around the fullest part of the chest. You take that measurement and that is, write that down, whether that's 100 centimeters, 110, 150, 80, whatever it is, write that measurement down now. Beautiful. Then take your waist measurement, which is, right around your, your belly button area. Yeah. Take that measurement, write that one down real quickly. Then you take the hip measurement, which is the widest part of your belly. Not the stomach, but the belly and a little tiny bit of the back. We won't talk about that. Take that measurement, write it down. Now, pick which measurement was the widest. Join me back over at the workstation, and then we will talk about how we're going to incorporate our measurements in our Hexi cardigan. Alrighty guys, now that you know your measurement, that's your arm edge, yes? I want you to open the base for one moment. Grab your measuring tape. Now, the largest measurement that you came up with, I need for you to halve it. So let's say you had 100 centimeters for your largest measurement. Half of that is 50, yeah? You measure across here. If it measures 50, which it doesn't, I'll need to do a few more rounds, and we'll talk about that in a minute, right? Let's say for this piece here, it measures 40 centimeters, right? So for me, there's no way half of my largest measurement is 40 centimeters. I need to do a few more rounds. So whatever your measurement is, if it doesn't make half of your largest measurement, then you need to do a few more rounds with us right now. All right. If you don't want to work your own personal measurement, then you can just go into the description box down below, check out the measurements that are there, and that will help you do the rest of your rounds. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you 2 rows of what we need to do. We're going to cast off in a minute, and then I'm going to show you 2 rows of how you can continue one section of your hexagon cardigan. All right, so we're going to do that now. So grab whichever piece you have, and we're going to do that real quickly. And where's the thread? Here we go. And I ended up on the right side of my work. It doesn't matter, doesn't matter. All right, so what I'm going to do is chain my 2, 1, 2, because that's the end of my round. Slip stitch into the stitch with a stitch marker you would have, yeah. Pull a loop through, pull up a loop. Before you pull the loop up completely, this is going to be, let's bring that down again. This is going to be your sleeve edge. You're going to use this thread to sew along here, but not just along here, the rest of your hexagon. And we'll talk about that in a minute. So grab your thread and just assume that you will need, I don't know, 1, 2, and 3. So triple it, yeah? Then you cut it. Yes, I've cut it already. I just pretended like I did, yeah? And just pull that loop through for the length that it is. That's probably too much. But anyway, don't go there, right? So there you go. It goes like that, and like that. I tripled my piece, right? And we're going to use that thread later to sew along here and here when we finish doing the rest of our rows. So if you are struggling with what I'm talking about with numbers, just go down to the description box down below and it will show you how many more rounds or rows that you need to do for your size. We're going to call them rows now because rounds is when we're doing the whole piece. We're not doing the whole piece anymore. We're doing one section only, okay? grab your piece. This is your arm edge. As you know, pop your stitch markers in there, guys. Pop your stitch markers where you want your arm edge to be. And the first one here is with the tail on the right-hand side, okay? So work on that with the tail on the right-hand side, and that's your arm edge. You're going to grab your new thread. Well, it's probably the old thread, but as you can see, I've worked on mine, and the reason is, for those of you who are my regulars would know that I had an issue with the recording and the neighbours doing some house building work. So I have to do it all over again. Don't you love it? All right, so this is up towards the top of our neck. Just remove that stitch marker for a minute, and I'll just bring this up and you can have a look at it. So that is our neck edge, yeah? So, keep that in frame. I finished on this side of my work. So normally I would work on the opposite side. I would have turned my work and worked on the opposite side, okay? But the fact that this is my right side means I'm going to go into that corner. If this was my right side, I would have to go into that corner on this way and work this way. But this is the right side, so I'm going to go into the opposite corner and work along the wrong side of my work. For those of you who are not sure what the right and wrong side is, look at your piece. If these little tiny V's that you are looking at are facing you, that's your right side. If it's facing that way, right at the back there, then that's your wrong side. So I've got to work on my wrong side because I finished on my right side. So I hope that made sense, yeah? Pop your hook in the wrong side of your work. You are going to grab a piece of thread, your normal thread, pull it through, pass that little tail forward because we're going to lock it into place, yeah? And chain 1, just tighten it a little bit, the first one, 2 and 3. Grab your stitch marker, like that, perfect, and pop it in. In the same spot or corner as it is, you're going to pop a double crochet. You know how to do that, in and doing your double crochet. So just 2 for this section, not 3. Now that's the wrong side of my work, so I'm going to leave the tail in there, right? Yarn over my hook, I'm going to jump straight into the very next space and do a normal cluster set of 3 double crochets. 1, 2, and 3. And guess what? That's it. Go into your next set with your cluster and so on all the way across, and I'll tell you exactly where you need to go. I don't want you to sit here and watch me do these cluster sets. It'll take forever. All right, so what I want you to do, and it didn't work, let's bring it out again. What I want you to do is to continue your set all the way, sets I should say, all the way around, get to your first corner. Complete the corner like normal. Then continue all the way to the second corner. Complete that like normal. Then work all the way up to this blue stitch marker corner. All right. So place a stitch marker that you are going to know that's where you need to stop. And that is what you'll do. Clusters all the way through, corner 1. Clusters all the way through, corner 2. Clusters all the way to the very top where this blue stitch marker is. Complete all of that. Meet me back here in a moment and I'll tell you what we're going to do next. Alrighty guys, so here we are at the end of the side. So what we did was we started in that corner. We went all the way down to our first corner, right across to the second corner, and then I asked you to come all the way up to that blue stitch marker right there, or whatever colour you used. Doesn't matter about colour, it was just to differentiate between the two sides, yeah? So let's move that out the way for a minute, okay? So we're here, yep. You've done your last cluster set, and if you haven't, pop your last cluster set in the space before the corner, yeah? Now we're popping 2 double crochets in that corner. So yarn over your hook, 1 and 2. Remove your stitch marker. And that is actually one side complete. All right. This is now your sleeve. So we're not going along here. We're not filling up the corner and going along here. We're not doing that. What we're going to do now here is chain 1, 2 and 3. Pop a stitch marker in those top 2 loops. Like that. Yep. And from here, you're going to flip your work and work along the stitches that we just completed. All right, so you've got your chain 3, move your little stitch marker out the way, and ignoring all of this here, and we're going to jump into the space with 3 double crochets. 1, 2, and 3. All right, and guess what? The rest you know. Go into the very next space with 3 double crochets, or your cluster set. Don't you love the jargon? Yeah. All right. We're going to show you now. Oh, bring this out. Hello. You can get it right. Okay. So what we're going to do here, very simple. Exactly what you just did. You're going to go all the way along here, get to the first corner, go along there, get to your second corner, and go right up to our very first stitch marker that we put in when we started this row. Okay, now we're calling them rows now because they're not exactly rounds. They're not going all the way and around. We are doing one side, turning, going around, doing the other side, turning, and then coming back. So they're now rows. Yeah, so your job, cluster sets all the way down, do your corner, all the way across, second corner, all the way up, get to that stitch marker right there, and I'll meet you there once you're done. Alrighty guys, here we are at the end of this row. Very exciting now, yes? And we've still got our stitch markers on our sleeve edge. We may not need them there soon because you'll know exactly what you're doing, yeah? But for now. Alright, so what we're going to do, we've got our space before our last 2 stitches, yeah? So you're going to pop a normal cluster set of 3 double crochets in that last space, 2 and 3, and then you're just putting 1 double crochet in that chain that we first started with. That's our very first chain we started with. So pop a double crochet right on top of that stitch, and you can remove your stitch marker now. And what I want you to do is just place it in this loop for a minute so we can have some instructions. All right, so let's show you exactly what we've done here. So now what we've done is we've done 2 rows, if you will, more than your sleeve edge. But that may not be enough for your size. So what you're going to do now is open up your piece and grab your measuring tape and measure your piece from there to there, right? And let's say for argument's sake, yours measured 45 centimetres, yeah? So double that, what is that? 90 centimetres. Now if your largest width of your chest, waist or hips is 90 centimetres, you can stop here and go to that time right there. All right, but if you still have so many more rows to go, like somebody I know, your job is to keep doing those 2 rows over and over again until you get to half of your largest measurement. Now, if all this is too confusing, go to the description box down below. It will tell you how many rows you need to do for your size, but you still need to know this measurement. So measure your piece. And like I said, this one here is 45 centimetres. So this one here, I need to do so much more. I'm not going to tell you how much more. We're not going into my measurement. But I need to do quite a few rows more. If you measured enough for you to be 88 centimetres and it's a 90 centimetre piece, you may have to take undone those 2 rows because it's really important to have your own measurement. All right, that's why I said all we're doing right now is measuring from one section to the other. All right, now this is probably more than 45, but I'm just putting down 45 just for the sake of showing you a measurement. So you double that, and that's 90 centimetres, so anyone who's 90 centimetres can stop there. If you are 100 centimetres, you need to do those 2 rounds as many times as you can to make your, trying to think now, 50 centimeters, all right? Then you need to do, if you're bigger than 100 centimeters, you need to do more. So keep doing those 2 rounds until you get to half of your largest measurement, all right? I hope that makes sense. If not, check out the description box down below for your size. It will tell you how many more rows to do, but that's going on you measuring your piece here, all right? So stay focused on that. So either way, you need to measure your piece, and all you're measuring is that one little section right there. That's your sleeve right here. That's your sleeve. You're opening up the base and you're measuring that base section there, all right? So your job now is to head off on your own, repeat the last 2 rows we just did, and there's the time from when we first started. Repeat those last 2 rows over and over again until you make your measurement. Mine will probably be about this big. Roughly around there, all right? So keep doing that until you reach your measurement. Meet us back here in just a moment and we'll talk about the opposite side of our work. Alrighty guys, here I am at the end of my piece. I still have my stitch markers up the top where my sleeve is. I have pulled off the first 2 so that I can open up my piece like so. Now remember how I said you need to take the largest measurement of your body before? Yep. What I want you to do is get that largest measurement, divide it by 2. So halve it. That's all you need to do. Take half of that large measurement, then measure from here to here. It should measure half of your measurement. So let's say your largest measurement was 100 centimeters, then you should have a 50 centimeter piece. If the largest measurement was 110 centimeters, then you should have 55 centimeters across here. If it was 120 centimeters, you should have 60 across there. If it was 90 centimeters, then you should have 45. All right. So bear that in mind, that piece right here, from here to here, should measure half of your largest measurement that you took before. All right, I hope that made sense. When you get to the amount that you need, you go up to the very last stitch. What we're going to do first is, there are many ways you can do this. Make sure you have done your last stitch. Just place your stitch marker in the little piece of thread there. What I want you to do is we're going to use this thread to do another so many rows for your size. Now we'll talk about that in a minute, but before we do anything, remember this piece of thread that we left over here. Now if you are the smaller sizes and you are just joining us, we left our thread really long on this side. Now if you didn't, then you need to cast off this thread, or you need to grab a piece of thread and just do what we're doing now. All right, so we are going to start sewing along the sleeve edge. We're going to leave that thread attached, and we'll talk about that in a minute, right? I know a lot of people cut it and then they reattach their yarn, which is the right way to do it, but there are trickier ways. And when we get down to that end, I will show you the tricky way, all right? But in the meantime, get to the sleeve base. That's this part here of your sleeve. So this is the base of your sleeve. Grab your piece of thread. Now, if you've got one of these sewing needles that have the little flick, they're called darning needles, then that's good to use in this situation. However, if you've just got a normal sewing needle, that's fine too. I find that it's easier to go through loops when you have one of these little flicks. Yeah, but anyway, I don't know what you call them, little flick thing. Anyway, grab your needle and place it into the second chain right there. Yeah, popping it through like so. Just in the middle of that second chain. Now, what we're going to do is work from the inside now. We're going to turn our piece inside out because your piece is actually on the right side. Remember, you've got your stitch marker here to show you the right side. So what I want you to do is remove your stitch markers along the side of your piece. All right, so what I want you to do is get down to the base, open it up like that. Yep, don't move it, just open it up. Flip your whole piece. I'm going to flip it this way because my yarn is on this side. but go and turn your whole piece like that. Yeah? Now just ignore that thread. I'll move it out the way so you can ignore it. Yeah? And then just bring those corners back up again. Like that. And you should end up with the largest size on this side. This is for those larger sizes, not for the ones who have just joined us. So everyone needs to turn it inside out, yeah? Just for those of you who've done the extra rounds, be careful. Marry up the widest piece with your widest piece and your shortest piece with your shortest piece. So your sleeve is there and your fronts and backs are down here, all right? Just keep that in mind. And if you don't know what you've done, just focus on the fact that you did extra rows here and extra rows here. They need to marry up on this side, all right? Just focus on that and then your work will be even. So whilst you're here, you need to grab your thread with your sewing needle, which I have tangled up with the main yarn. All right, I just went off air to untangle that. The sun has come through, guys, but it's getting cloudy and it's going to come down in the bucket loads. It's going to rain for like hours. But anyway, here we go. We are now on the inside of our work. Your stitch marker will be, the front of your stitch marker will be on the other side. This is the base of the stitch marker. So we are inside. And if you didn't know whether you're inside, your tail should be on the inside. All right. So I hope that helped. So now we are here with this second loop right here. We're going to go back into that very first chain, go into the first chain on this side and pull our thread through. So you are doing the first chain on one side, the first chain on the opposite. Then you're going into that second chain that we did go into before, into the second chain on this side, and we're doing it again. For those of you who've got a little tail, don't pull your tail all the way through, leave a long tail. You can weave that end in at the end. But for the rest of us who have our tail attached, we can just keep going. Okay? Into each stitch. Now we started with the two. I'm just going to fix that up a bit, straighten it up. That's better. We started with those chain stitches. Now we're going on to the first stitch on this side, and you're going through both the loops. And the first stitch on the opposite side, and you are going through both the loops. This is why I find these little flick, darning needles are a lot easier to work with, yeah? And did I split it after all that? All right, so you can see whether you've split your yarn. Try not to split it because it will be noticeable on the front, yeah? So just keep doing that all the way. I think I've left too long of a tail, but anyway, just keep doing that all the way. Come to the front of your piece, do your second double crochet in that stitch right there, and your second on the opposite side right there, without splitting any yarn, without catching any yarn, and you are placing that thread through like so. All right, and that is pretty much how we're going to do our sleeve. Now, I'm not going to let you sit here and watch me. That's the third stitch and the third stitch. And I just want to show you a little bit more. I just bring the tail in front. It's a lot easier to pull through. It's out of the way. I'll show you what I mean by that. I'm just trying to make it easier for you. First stitch on the front, first stitch of the next cluster set, that is, on the back. So just bring your thread forward and just pull it through like that, holding onto the thread, and it doesn't get caught on anything that way. All right, so that's all I want you to do, just that. Into the second stitch of the second cluster, into the second stitch, we're already in that one there, so into the second stitch of our second cluster at the back, bring all your tails back or forward, I should say, and pull that thread through, running it under your finger. This way it doesn't get caught on anything and everything's fine. Now, if you want to check real quickly how you're going, turn it through, making sure you are not splitting any yarn. Because if you split one of these threads, it's going to look like that. You don't want that, okay? I'm going to have to fix that up now. Be very careful not to split, all right? I'm not going to let you sit here and watch me do this. It's going to take forever. So what I want you to do, let's try that again, is continue in that manner, get all the way up to here. But what I want to do is, I don't want you to go all the way onto your piece that you are in. I'll get a blue one so you can see the difference between it. Just get to, I want you to get to the very last corner there. Don't complete it, because we need to work along these stitches as well. So just get to that very last corner, meet me there. I do all of that piece, get to that last corner, meet me there, and then we'll talk about what we're going to do next. Alrighty guys, so here we are at the end of our piece, and you can see mine is completely sewn right up to the stitch marker where I said to get to. Now, I think I got to my second stitch, or second last stitch there. Yes, and now I need to get the third stitch of that last cluster set in the corner. Alright, so right there, and the third stitch on the opposite side, and we are now officially at the corner. However, we still need to go right across this way here. Now, it can be a little tricky, okay, but just make sure that each row matches the row on the opposite side. Now, we're not there yet, we still need to do the corner. All right, you've got a corner stitch right there, which is just the one there, and just the one on the opposite side. So in the stitch of your corner stitch right there. Yeah. Then you want to go into, and it's up to you how you do this. I'm going into the base of the stitch, the very first chain, which is actually the first chain there, and the base on the opposite side. Now, that's the way I'm going to do it, but it's up to you how you want to do it. Still try to get through 2 loops. Now, I know I'm splitting this other side because the yarn is quite splitty there. It's only because I've worked on it a few times. This is what happens when you practice. Then you go into your very next, which is the top part of the stitch on this side, and the top part of the stitch on that side. All right. Now, this can be a tad tricky, so just being wary how you do this. All right. Now, again, there's no right or wrong way of doing it, but between you and I, when I get to here, when I get to the colour change, I'm going to thread some of this colour and this one on this side and complete this way and this way. And the reason is that way I don't have to see my other colour over it. I don't have to see the dark grey, if you will, or brown, or whatever you want to call this colour. It's actually called koala. Yep. So I'm going to use this colour to attach these 3 rows, if you will. All right. You don't need to. You can stick to the same thread if you like. So I'm going to pop this on fast, and we're going to get up to that colour change. Now, that's only for my purpose, not really for yours, but I'm going to do that anyway. All right, and off we go. So we're going right into the very next stitch on that side, and the very, let's go, should make sure we're in the same area. We want to make sure we're in the same stitch. If you're not sure, just marry them up and go through as close as you can to each side. But make sure that each row marries up to each row. It's got to be exactly the same. And you can do that with your little spaces. So marry up your spaces if that helps. Yeah. Where am I? Up there. Alrighty guys, so I'm pretty close to this cream, yeah, and I'm going to just do my last stitch near the cream and just open it up a little bit and make sure my colours are marrying up. I've got another stitch there. Come on, Mary, you can do this. I'm not in the stitch yet. Right there. So make sure your colours are marrying up. I've just sewn over that thread, not necessary. It doesn't matter, you may not have all these threads because I've got them because I changed colours. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to drop this colour. You don't need to. You can continue to use it. We're going to weave that in later. And I'm going to work on a couple of stitches on this side and a couple of stitches on the other side. This is just a little technique to show people that if you didn't want to change, if you didn't want to use a darker colour on your lighter colours and you have threads, use your threads. It's not necessary, but it's something that I do a lot. And I do that so that people can't see the stitching. Yeah, stitching is not visible. Now this is not going to make it on this side right here. So I'm just going to pull that out and use this bit here. And it does seem a little bit more fiddly, but again, if you are changing colours often, it may pay to use similar colours. If you've got them, you're going to have to weave them in anyway. So in this case, I'm going up the top and through the top of that stitch. Yeah, and I'm going downwards because I haven't finished here. Yeah, so I'm going downwards like that. And this again is not necessary. You can use the one colour and weave all the way across. And then what I'm going to do, which I'll weave these in later, but I just want to show you what I'm going to do with this darker grey that I was doing with before, that I was using before. Yeah. And we're just going to rethread it. Whoops. Because we want to go back. I've got the wrong one. That's an old thread. Let's try this again. We're just going to rethread that darker grey. It's just frayed a little bit. Let me fix that up. That's from weaving or sewing in and out a lot. Yeah, it happens when you are using your thread a lot. All right, so here's the grey again. So all I'm going to do, and this is what people say, why would you do that then? I find it's better, let me get all these threads out of the way so you can see what I'm going to do with this grey. It's better than the thread showing underneath. So all I'm going to do is do a soft little, through a couple of little threads up the top that you can't see because I'm only going through the thin, like a couple of little splitting of the thread. I'm not going through the whole piece. So as long as you can't see that needle from this side, this is a good way of doing it. I'm going to remove this stitch marker. Oh no, I won't. Yeah, I will. I'll pull up the loop and remove the stitch marker. You can do the same if you want. And just pull that thread through. Now again, you didn't have to do this. This was not necessary. This is just something that I do, making sure if you're going to do this, that you use the technique. If you don't use the technique, it's going to show. Right, then you're going into into that first stitch and into the first stitch on the opposite side. Yep, and then you are now on your corner area. You're going into the first chain on one side and the stitch on the other, the same stitch you are in. All right, all the way through. Sorry about all these threads, guys. We still have this last stitch to do in the chain right here. So you're going to pop your needle in that stitch marker stitch, remove your stitch marker, just pull it through for a minute just so it's out of the way, and pop in the stitch with your thread. Just pop it through for now, but don't knot it yet. Remove your thread. This is only if you wanted to keep your other thread attached so it's easy to just restart your back. Now we'll talk about that once we turn our work in the right side. We're going to talk about these other ends and tails you've got here later. Just turn your work in the right side. So turn it back to the right side. So right now what you should have is that. Gorgeous, yeah? Simply gorgeous. All your ends would not be visible, and by using the lighter colour you can't see that darker colour. Now I've got a tail on this end which we can actually thread that through later. Don't worry about it. I don't know if you've got it, but alrighty guys, before we continue, we are going to do the rest of the tutorial on part 3, the final part of our hexagon cardigan on Tuesday. But what I need for you to do is do exactly the same for this piece that we have right here, this one that's left, for the piece that you've just done. So whatever you've done for this piece, I would like you to do the same for this piece. When we return, you will be doing the back of your piece, which is this part here. Now I've already started recording part 3. Yeah, so that's the back. So what you will be doing is working on one side only. I don't want you to work without me. Just be careful because you may start it all wrong. So I'm going to hold it there or keep it there, but I want you to actually repeat what we've done today for your other piece, starting exactly where you started today for now. When you come back and we start the back will be done a little bit different for both sides. All right, so I think we'll leave it there. I would like for you to continue. Do not cast off this thread, okay? But if you wanted to cast off this thread, you can cast it off, weave in all ends, and then you can reattach on Tuesday when we return. It's entirely up to you. I didn't cast it off because I'm going to use that thread to do the back on this side. And when we do the back on the opposite side, it will be started differently. It will not be started up the top, okay? But for now, what I want you to do is to repeat this for exactly the same as you've done this, without that part that you haven't done yet. Meet us back here on Tuesday and we will finalise our hexagon cardigan. All right, so thank you very much for joining us here at Wow Crochet Designs in making our hexagon cardigan to suit your own size. How exciting is that? So your job now, do that for that piece right there. Meet us back here on Tuesday and we'll finalise our cardigan. Thank you very much for joining me. My name is Mary. This is Wow Crochet Designs, and ciao for now.